Hello! Before we jump into another potentially life-changing interview, you should know that there are hundreds of episodes of Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. A lot of them are posted here on this channel. So if you enjoy this interview, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel because you're going to get access to interviews with people like Wayne Dyer, Neil Donald Walsh, Eckhart Tolle, Bernie Siegel, Lisa Nichols from The Secret, a few teachers from the movie The Secret, What the Bleep Do We Know, Dr. Joe Dispenza, so many amazing thought leaders and people that you probably want to learn from. So if you're into that kind of material, definitely subscribe to this channel. And let me know what you think. What are some of the questions that you would have asked? What are some of the things that you're working through? This show is for you as well as for me, and we're all here to change our lives for the better together. So I'm so glad you found us. Thank you for being a part of this community. Enjoy the interview. Yay! Welcome to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and our guest, wife, mother, and award-winning producer of the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, Betsy Chasse, thought she had it all figured out until she realized she didn't. The truth was she didn't know anything about happiness, love, spirituality, or herself. Nothing, nada, zilch. Welcome to the show, Betsy.
Oh, thank you so much. I apparently don't have a phone figured out either.
Oh, that's okay. It happens. No worries. So yeah, Betsy had called the wrong number, but we got the right number and we're connected, so it all worked out. So you are the author of Tipping Sacred Cows, and you're also working on a new movie, a sequel to What the Bleep Do We Know. So just maybe bring us up to speed with why you decided to write this book and what's going on for you.
Wow. Well, gosh, it's just a big question. I mean, I decided to write this book mostly because, that's what I do. I share life through, writing and filmmaking and storytelling. And for me, life is just this, it's a trip, right? And I made this movie called The Bleep, and it sort of, in a way, told me I had all the answers to life. So I kind of went out for 10 years and was like, I've got this figured out, man. I got it down. And, life is very funny. It has a way of letting you know when you're getting too cocky. And so my beautiful, wonderfully crafted reality just sort of fell apart completely. I ended up getting divorced. The husband, all those things that I thought were perfect ultimately weren't perfect. And I was really unhappy. And I couldn't understand why I was unhappy. Like, you have all the things you're supposed to have, right? You have the house, you have the car, you have the husband, you have the kids. It's all like there, right? And I really wanted to understand what was it that was missing for me, and what could I do to really find that thing that we're all looking for, that happiness, And what I eventually, so I wrote the book as my own exploration into understanding, what is the meaning to life? What do all these things that we talk about in our cool spiritual circles, like the law of attraction, living in bliss, enlightenment, spirituality, I create my reality, what do they really, really mean? And how do I really make them, really incorporate them into my life in a way that I can be happy?
Thank you, Betsy. And I read your whole book, and at the end I cried, and it was, it's a great book, and it's interesting how we have such different lives. You have I come from a big family, I have no family, and yet it's like, I think anyone can relate to this book because we all go through this, especially as spiritual seekers. We're seeking because we're seeking something that it feels like there's something missing. And
right.
We're always looking for this happiness. And if we're not happy every second of the day, we tend to judge ourselves.
Right.
And it sounds like you're figuring out that finding your bliss and finding your happiness isn't about sticking a smile on your face all the time.
Well, I think that, for me, I decided that I stopped looking for happiness. I stopped looking for bliss. I stopped looking for enlightenment. One of the big tenets of spirituality is this concept that everything you need is within you. But then we're always doing things outside of us. Like if I do yoga, I'll meditate and I'll be happy. If I do this vision board, then I'll have a reason to focus on what I need and I'll be happy. And we're constantly looking for ways. And in doing that, what we're telling ourselves is something about us is wrong. We don't have something. Your life is not good because you don't have this, that, the Mercedes or whatever. And so then I'm constantly telling myself something's wrong. And so for me, I just stopped and looked around at my life and said, oh, well, okay, what is in my life that I like and what is in my life that I could probably do with changing, and got real about that. Like, it's not like, I figured, oh, I need to, change my hair color, which I did recently. But I think the whole concept of tipping sacred cows is really about doing the work. We have this tendency to want to fix things in 3 easy steps. I always love the articles on these online magazines or magazines where they say, women, find balance, schedule a spa day, like as if, scheduling a spa day is all you need to find balance in your life. And for me, I realized that was just one-dimensional. I really had to clean up myself, and I had to get in there, figure out what it was that I believed about myself and about this world that was creating the life that I had, and clean that up. And from there, I could then possibly create the life that I really wanted. It's about getting into the dark, ugly corners of your closet that you don't really, those places where you kind of just open the door and you're like, ugh, I'll deal with that later. Yeah, it's time to deal with that,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. When you mention affirmations in the book a little bit, and I've been reading a lot about affirmations lately. And the thing is that if you're affirming something that is just pushing away those ugly feelings, they just go deeper and deeper, and then they start to eat away at you even more because you're not allowing yourself to actually look at those feelings.
Right. Well, I love positive affirmations. They're great. But the problem with positive affirmations is that I can sit here and scream, I am whatever, till the cows come home. But if I have an ounce of doubt, if I have one cell in my body that doubts that I am statement, it's not going to happen. So, it's sort of like there was a guy in the Bleep who said, positive affirmations are like smearing, peanut butter on top of a bunch of negative affirmations. You have to. So for me, I just decided to stop trying to do all these cool tricks to trick my mind and just to clean it out. I'm still in the process. I'm still having, every day I'm still doing all this work because I just feel like I wasn't living authentically. I felt like I was lying. I was lying to the world. I was lying to everyone in my life. And I just said, what? I want to just be truthful about who I am and what I'm doing. And the truth is, I'm a human. I'm in this life, and, I'm going to screw it up every day, at least 1,000 times. But I'm going to do the best that I can. And part of that means that you got to sit with those negative feelings. Like the thing about affirmations or vision boards for me was that, I could make a vision board that said, I'm going to have the house, I'm going to have this. And sure, I might get all those things. But the question becomes, why do I want those things? Like I always use the example of the Mercedes. Like, you put on your vision board that you want a nice car, and so you focus on the nice car. But I needed to start asking myself, why did I want that car? What was it about that car that was fulfilling me? So, then I realized, wow, I want the nice car because the nice car makes me feel like I'm successful. It makes me feel like I'm, respected. It makes me feel like I belong. All of these things. And then I started to say, well, what is it about my own life right now that I don't believe that I'm any of those things? And oftentimes when I kind of did the work backwards, I realized, well, the truth is I don't really want a Mercedes. I want to feel like I belong. Oh, well, how can I do that within myself without having to try to manifest outwardly things? And not just Mercedes, but a boyfriend, marriage, all these things that we think are what we need to make our lives what they should be. And then when I did that, then I could also get down to go, oh, I really want the Mercedes because it's fun and I happen to laugh when I like the car. Okay, that's reasonable. You have to clean it up, and then if you really want it, go for it. There's nothing wrong with wanting things either, but we just have to be clear as to why we want them.
Okay. Well, you mentioned something in the book, shoe consciousness. What is shoe consciousness?
So I have a penchant for shoes. I love shoes, and I'm never giving that up. So I've cleaned out my shoe closet, my cows about that. I just love shoes. So, but for me, shoe consciousness means, that sort of very, very first dimension, what kind of car am I driving? What kind of shoes am I wearing? Who's the boyfriend on my arm? All those things that look really good. But if you sort of, peel back the curtain, you realize that there's a lot of mucky stuff underneath all that. And so it's not really real. It's just kind of like the outwardly things that make it look like we're all sort of together and happy.
Thank you.
We like to put on a brave face. I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I decided to do is to stop putting on such a brave face, because I think that's what people are really looking for in my own personal life. I've developed, in the last couple of years, some really wonderful friendships out of just being real and being authentic, as opposed to the Betsy before who you looked at and thought, wow, that girl has it all together. She's got it all figured out. Because I didn't have it all figured out, and I don't have it all figured out. And when I can sit with that, other people can sit with that, and it actually makes you feel better about your life,
Actually, I wanted to ask you about that because now for me, I have one specific incident that I'm thinking of, and I'm guessing that you have done this over sort of a period of time. But after the show one day, I was speaking with a teacher, and I just was like, I'm going to be totally authentic today and not in a negative way. But she said, how are you doing today? And I said, I'm feeling a bit sad, but I know it'll pass. And I could tell she was really uncomfortable with my honest answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, because we want to fix it. Because when you say to somebody, I'm feeling sad, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Right?
Yeah.
So what happens is when you say to somebody, I'm feeling sad, they immediately want to be sympathetic. Oh, don't feel sad. Everything is great in your life. And then what happens is you're now being told that feeling sad is not good and that you should get over it. When, now in my life, with a friend calls me and says, ugh, like this morning, I gave a perfect example. I am totally PMS, which means I'm moody, okay? Which means that, I woke up with this kind of feeling a little bit down. And, so, I talked to my boyfriend. I'm like, oh, I'm PMSy and moody. And instead of him going, oh, don't feel bad, blah, 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 he was like, wow, okay, I understand that. That's empathy. That's empathy. Because then he's not telling me my feelings are wrong. He's not telling me I shouldn't. He's not telling me, gee, you should be so happy. Your book is out. All these things are going great. He just really was like, oh, I understand that. I understand that. And people have a really hard time with that because we want to fix things all the time. So I don't need to fix something in you. I want you to be heard. And when, I bet you know this, when you feel like you've expressed something to somebody and you truly feel heard, it's amazing. That's that whole, idea of feeling connected, feeling, this unconditional love, those things. When you're feeling heard, and feeling heard comes from empathy, not from sympathy.
That is so true. And there's a portion in the book where you tell a bit of a story about a situation where your daughter was trying to express her feelings to you. Can you remind us of that?
Oh, gosh. Oh, look, I'm so ADD right now, but the coolest thing just occurred. I'm sitting outside, and this teeny, tiny little hummingbird literally just landed like 2 feet from my head. It was so cool. Anyway, this happens a lot. So my kids are, awesome. I mean, they're the best teachers. And, I'm a mom. I got 2 kids, and, I'm probably failed them daily. But, I learned from all those failures. And my daughter came home really mad at someone, we always, as spiritual people, always want our kids to be like indigo children and all this stuff, and right, they're supposed to be wise beyond their years. And my daughter was really mad at this person, and I tried to tell her, I was being sympathetic. Oh, don't be mad, gee, you want to love her and you want to show her, understand her meanness, and accept and be willing to see her perspective and all this stuff. And my daughter just looked at me and she was like, you know what? What she did really hurt my feelings, and I just want to be hurt for a minute. I want to be angry. Can I just be angry? And I was like, God, that's what we do to each other. It's okay for her. I'm teaching her, don't be angry. But, and what? So she's going to shove it down and ignore it and pretend it didn't happen and then, not deal with it? So I said, you're right. God, be angry. Yes, that person did something to you that hurt your feelings. And then what happens is that in her ability to just be angry for a minute, then she processes and moves on.
Okay. And I totally see that. And then I'm wondering, what's the difference, though, between, because for me, and maybe this is because of all the times that I've had to push it down, but once I start, like, somebody pissed me off today, and then there's this other thing that bugged me, and now there's this other thing, and it starts to snowball, and I get into this totally negative mood, rather than just, like, venting, okay, now I feel better, thank you. What's the difference?
Because we have to do the work around it. Like, it's really easy to just spiral downward. But see, this is where you have to be conscious. This is where you have to be aware. Because what I do, for me, is like there's a game in the back of my book. It's called My Life Sucks, So I let myself process the anger at that person. And it might take an hour. It might take a week. It might take a month. But while I'm doing that, I'm asking myself really important questions about it. Like, so if I think this person has wronged me, why do I think, what happened and why do I think they wronged me? What's my belief system around that situation? Is there a way in which I possibly could see it a different way? So that I'm not just sitting in there, bashing the other person as they're being bad. I'm also doing the work around it. But I don't think you can honestly do the work around it and answer those questions honestly if you don't let yourself be angry at it first. I'm really angry because this person did something to me that really hurt my feelings. Yes, it's okay for my feelings to be hurt. Yes, I acknowledge that it's okay for my feelings to be hurt. I let my feelings be hurt. And then I go, okay, well, why did it hurt your feelings? What is it that you believe that makes that particular situation hurt so much? Oh, because when I was 7, this happened. Or, oh, because I believe I'm not worthy. There's all these little things that are tied to why we get upset. And oftentimes when I'm willing to just do the My Life Sucks game or just kind of think about it honestly, I can oftentimes go, oh, gosh, I see why this person hurt me so badly. And most of the time, it actually doesn't have so much to do with that other person. It's really you carrying some belief system within you that gave you a wound, and that person just dumped salt in it. That doesn't mean that person didn't do what they did. It just means that you took it in a really personal way because of a belief system you're carrying around it.
So then, Betsy, does being aware of those triggers and those beliefs help? Like, how do you clear that? Because you're friends with Joe Dispenza. He's been on the show a couple of times, and we do have neuroplasticity. We can create new pathways in our brain, but those ones that we've been feeding for decades that get triggered on a daily or weekly basis, those are deep wounds. I mean, they don't just clear overnight when you're aware of them, do they?
No. I mean, I don't think so. I'm dealing today. I have a situation that it's like, God, I'm really partly because I'm PMSing, so of course I'm like super sensitive, right? So, it takes practice. You got to go through the steps. You got to ask yourself the questions. You have to make a commitment. Like for me, one of the big shifts in my life was that I promised myself that I would be conscious and aware of my thoughts and actions and the feelings around them, and that I would have an honest conversation with myself about why I have them. Nobody else has to be around. You can do this by yourself, so you don't have to be embarrassed, But for me, if there's something that's happened in my life that's really bruised me, hurt me, then I sit down and have a conversation with it. Why is this hurting me so much? What's the thing about this that's really bugging me so much? What part of me is being offended? See, for me, and I think a lot of people, it's just a lot easier just to be pissed off and offended and then put it off on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to go, well, that person's a jerk. Or in the spiritual circles, we all like to go, oh, I brought that person into my life to teach me a lesson. Then we're blaming and judging ourselves. Look, we are human beings. We've collected a lot of sacred cows, most of which we aren't even aware of. So I also give myself a break. I say, gosh, oh, that really bothered me. I got really upset about that, and it's okay. It's okay, because we tend to say, oh, now you're not being very spiritual because you let that person upset you. Well, no, I'm just going to be a human and get upset, and then I'm going to have a conversation with why it upset me, and then I'm going to get clean about it. And I'm going to do that over and over and over and over again, because that's the thing. And so for me, that was one of the things that really bothered me with, kind of being on the spiritual path, is I'm never making any progress. I'm still stuck in this place. I'm thought I had cleaned that up. I'm okay with the fact that I'm going to repeat a lot, and that's okay. I'll get it eventually.
Yeah, because so many times we go, God, why do I keep making the same mistake? What a loser. Why am I so stupid?
Well, for me, with in the game, My Life Sucks, one of the parts that I love that's the best for me is to be willing to admit that I failed at everything. It's just, because you know what? I could just say, God, I failed today at parenting because I got mad at my daughter. I wasn't patient with my son. I was late, whatever it was. You make up, I failed today. Oh, yeah, okay. So if I failed today, good. I've admitted that I've taken responsibility for my failure. Spiritual people don't like the word failure. Again, there's that sympathy, empathy thing. And then I go, tomorrow I can do something better. Cool. Because there's nowhere to go. Once you've gone to failure, there's nowhere to go but up. So I try to shift the conversation around it. Shift the instead of judging myself as oh, you're a terrible mother. Look, I finally really, it's about being okay with stuff. I know a lot of moms who are terrible moms one day. We all do it. Stop beating myself up over it, Because I know for the most part I'm a pretty dang good mom. It's also about accepting the goodness that you have in you. I went through a long time of feeling, because I got divorced, that I was a terrible mother and I was a failure at a mother because I failed my kids and I ruined their lives. And it was a lot of guilt and shame, and I had to stop doing that to myself,
Totally. Sometimes the more spiritual we are, the harder we are on ourselves.
Yep. That's truth. That's true, because we think we know better.
Or we should know better. And
right.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's time for a break, so we will be back with more synchronicity in just a moment. We are speaking right now with Betsy Chasse. She is the author of Tipping Sacred Cows, and we're going to talk about what a sacred cow is right after the break. And she is also one of the co-creators of the movie What the Bleep Do We Know. There is a sequel that they're working on right now. So we'll be back with more synchronicity in a moment. Thank you. Welcome back to Synchronicity, talk radio for your mind, body, and of course, your soul. We are talking with Betsy Chasse. She is the author of Tipping Sacred Cows. She's one of the co-creators of What the Bleep Do We Know? And I'm your host, Marie Benard. You can find me at spiritualshow.com. Welcome back to the show, Betsy.
Thank you.
Yay. So you've mentioned sacred cows a few times. The name of the book is Tipping Sacred Cows. So maybe we should talk about what's a sacred cow?
That's an excellent question. Well, so in my mind, a sacred cow is anything that you hold up against criticism. It's anything that you're not willing to look at, that you just accept at face value as being. And we have a lot of those. So, in society, a sacred cow is something like the Constitution or the Bible. These are things we just sort of say, this is what it is, and that's it. So, in your own life, if you start to ask this question, well, what do I have that are some sacred cows, you can kind of start looking at things, starting with your life. Look at your relationship with your partner. How do they treat you? How do other people around you treat you? Do you always feel left out? Do you always feel like you're the victim? Do you always feel like you're getting the shaft? Do you always, and then you can say to yourself, well, gee, why do I always feel like that? Oh, because within me, I've got a belief about something, for the most part, I think, for most women at least, and I think a lot of guys too, it boils down to self-worth. We have a lot of issues around self-worth. So oftentimes for me, that's where it always came back down to. I had self-worth because I didn't go to college, so I never felt smart enough. So I had to deal with that. So I was always trying to do things to make myself feel smarter or make myself feel accepted. But because I didn't feel smart enough, I would always feel like, oh, I'd failed. I didn't do that. Again, I go back to the book where I talk about this game called My Life Sucks. And one of the ways to get really clear on those hidden beliefs that you carry, those little sacred cows, is to play this game called My Life Sucks. And, first of all, I like to try to do everything with humor because I think laughing is sort of the best thing. I mean, if you think, like I said at the beginning, life is a trip. You take a moment and you look around at your own life, it's kind of funny, like the things that we get ourselves into and the things that we do. So I just try to look at everything with a slight sense of, irony or humor to it because it just reminds me that this too shall pass. So hence the game, My Life Sucks. And I like to play this, by yourself. And the other trick here is don't write things down, record yourself. Because we have a tendency when we're writing to edit. Because you have to think of it first and then you write it. And then as you're about to write it, you will almost always change what you first thought. Mm-hmm. Or you'll analyze what you first thought. And the point of the first step in My Life Sucks is to not analyze. So you just sit down and you start thinking about why your life sucks. My life sucks because I got divorced, because I married this guy that I shouldn't have married, and then, I had kids, and then I got fat, and then, whatever. Just start rattling it off and just let it go for it. Like whatever pops in your head, throw it out. The next step in My Life Sucks is to blame everyone. Because, whether we do it honestly, openly or not, secretly in your mind, you're blaming someone. There's always someone you can blame. I'm short because my parents were short, and therefore they had me, and I'm short, so it's my parents' fault. I gained weight because I had kids, so I'm going to blame my kids. I, never thought I was pretty because when I was 7, this guy told me that I was ugly. He's a jackass. Go for it. Blame everybody. Get it out. And then the third step is to just, like I said before, I just admit that I failed. Okay, I failed. I failed life because I didn't go to college. I failed life because I got married too young. I failed life because I didn't take that job that I could have taken that would have made me go around the world. It lists all the reasons why you failed. And have, again, don't edit. Just throw it out. When you're done with all those things, you might feel kind of crappy, and you might feel like, wow, my life is a miserable mess. But now is the time to transcribe what you wrote, because you'll find that you said things that you didn't even think were in your head. And the next most important question is to ask yourself, is any of this actually true? Because you believe it's true because you said it. Even if you were half joking, there's a part of you that believes it. And once you can look at that, you can start to look at your life and go, wow, I'm really angry because in high school I wanted to date this guy and he didn't like me, so I dated this other guy, and I built this whole story around love and never getting the one that I really wanted. So now I've been doing that my entire life. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. And that's when you can start uncovering your sacred cows. And then you can start to say, well, wow, is it really true that I don't deserve the man that I really want or the woman that I really want? Or is that just a story, a belief I picked up along the way and I can let go of? And then you have to start looking at your life, and then being thoughtful and conscious. So if you get asked out on a date, and there's a part of you that knows this guy isn't right, but there's that other part of you goes, I've been asked out. Somebody finally asked me out. I'm going to go on the date. Listen to that part that says, you know what, this person isn't what you want. Make that choice. You can't even make that choice most of the time because your brain goes into, it's so fast. Our brains are so quick that it immediately goes into desperate for love. We'll never find the one that I want, so we're going to take this date. But if you take the moment to just stop, let yourself have the initial thought, which is, oh, I better take this date because nobody else will ever ask me out again, process it, and then ask yourself, well, is there something else that I could be thinking, or is there another answer here? You'll hear that little voice in you that says, no, you really don't want to go out with this guy because he's not right for you. And then you can make that choice. But you have to be conscious of it first. You have to realize, oh, I realize that I probably want to say yes to this guy because I don't feel like I'm ever going to find someone to truly love me, and so I'm desperate, so I'm saying yes. I don't have to do that now. But you wouldn't even been aware of that if you hadn't really done the work to figure out that that's what's going on, why you keep dating the wrong guy every time. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, yes. Thank you. And I'm so happy that you shared the My Life Sucks game.
My pleasure. Well, that's what we're here to do, is figure out why our life sucks and change it.
Yay! All right. Well, I am curious. I want to ask you about the sequel to What the Bleep Do We Know? But what would you say, aside from the My Life Sucks game, what is one of the most important things that you want people to get from the book Tipping Sacred Cows?
I think that the most important thing I want people to get from reading my book is that, it's okay to flail around in humanness. We're all doing it. Nobody has it figured out. There is no 1, 2, 3 step program. You just have to be willing to do the work on yourself. And you also have to realize that ultimately the decision about the meaning and spirituality in your life comes from you. We have to make choices. And you have to make the choices that are the best for you. And that if you listen and trust yourself, you'll be able to do that. So I think a lot of times we don't trust ourselves and we're waiting for someone else to tell us, well, no, do spirituality this way and then you're spiritual. And that just isn't the case. For me, I had to redefine what it meant to live a spiritual life. And I decided that for me anyway, there was no, this is spiritual and this isn't spiritual. I started my spiritual journey when I was 44. No, I started this journey, at least in this reality, the minute I was born, and I'm still on it, and all of it is my journey.
Thank you for clarifying that, because you do talk about quite a few times in the book about the masks that we wear, and one of them is the mask of spirituality. And I do find sometimes, for my own experience, and I'm not saying this in a judgmental way because everyone has a right to their beliefs, but sometimes I get talking with some spirituality people and I'm just like, this is a bunch of BS. What is coming out of your mouth? You can't actually believe that that's true.
Yeah, because most of the time we're just spewing what we hear. We're recorders and we just repeat whatever we think other people want to hear. That's a big chapter in my book, is that whole idea of like, what are you wearing to the masquerade ball called life? It's like, I want to be perceived as someone who has a knowing of what it means to be spiritual. So therefore, I'm going to go around and pick up all the cool spiritual sayings and talk about them all the time. I always joke about like the person that, walks into the room with the biggest smile and the biggest pair of Bliss Bunny slippers and rose-colored glasses and says, I just totally love myself. I'm so madly in love with who I am. I'm usually thinking to myself, that person has real self-worth issues, because it just feels inauthentic, and we have, and for me, I just really want, when somebody says to me, don't you just love yourself unconditionally? I go, not really. I try, but, I sometimes have conditions. I'm working on it.
And that's really all we can do is, and I really love also in the book, there's some words like love and forgiveness that we really kind of whitewash, like it's just this all-encompassing term, and there's really different ways of loving. There's different levels of forgiveness, and you talk about acceptance and forgiveness. They're different things, and a lot of times people say, you should forgive, you should forgive, you should forgive, and there are things in life that we have to accept if we're going to be able to function.
Right. You have to, for me, the only thing that I have to accept is that today I'm alive. And I'm going to do the best that I can do. And that's really all I can do. And I'm going to be okay with that. Here's the thing. You have to be careful, because the flip side to this is just saying, well, I'm just going to go out and be an asshole all day because I'm allowed to be whatever I want to be. There has to be some integrity in your behavior. There has to be some willingness to take responsibility. So if I'm a jerk to someone, then I need to stand back and go, wow, I was a total jerk to that person, and take responsibility for that. But on the other side, we're all humans. We all have our stories. Everybody that you're interacting with has got a story that you probably don't even know. So for me, I just start every interaction with that, wow, I'm dealing with another human who has a whole story about their life and a belief system, and they're probably not going to hear me in any other way other than through that filter. So I'm going to do my best to communicate with them in a way that they can understand me. Because most of the time we don't understand each other.
Okay, I have one more question before we talk about the sequel to What the Bleep. With regards to people's filtering systems and having integrity, there are some people who use spirituality as an excuse to be jerks because they say, well, if I'm a jerk to you, then you must be attracting that.
Right.
And so that's your problem and you need to work on that, honey. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
How do you deal with them?
What I say is like, look, I get to choose my response to anyone, right? I get to choose how I respond to any person. So if somebody's being a jerk to me and I choose to continue to let them be a jerk to me, then guess what? I'm responsible for that. But if someone's a jerk to me and I choose to just walk away, then it's on them. I don't have any control over their behavior. So I don't get to say, oh, it's all my fault that I let them into my life. Now, here's the thing. Like a perfect example is, my marriage. I got married. I was in love. I married someone. And then I got divorced. Now, I could sit back and go, wow, I brought this person into my life. And, I did do that, right? And I did make choices, and my choices were based on the belief system that I had at the time. So, yes, I learned something from my marriage. I learned a lot about myself from my marriage and my divorce. So now I'm conscious and I'm thoughtful, when I interact with somebody else about what kind of person I want to let into my life, So there's that. If you're conscious and you're thoughtful, then chances are you're not going to be letting people into your life that shouldn't be there because you'll be aware. It's funny to me when I sit back and I think about all the interactions in my life where somebody has been a jerk to me. And I actually can see, like, well, Betsy, had you been honest and not just wanting to get laid, then you would have said to yourself from the step one, do not interact with this person. So in a way, yeah, we are bringing them into our lives because we're letting them in. But this idea that it's all your fault because you brought this person into your life, you didn't bring them into your life. You met each other, you interacted, and then you get to choose how you move forward. And sometimes, people are really good at masking themselves so much that you don't know who they are. And then it's up to you to say, well, I'm done with that person. That's the thing. I mean, you take a lot of blame. You don't have to blame yourself. It's not like you're a failure and you're bad because somehow you let some person into your life. Sometimes they just, people are hard to read. People are hard to figure out, and it happens. We don't have to sit here and make ourselves feel bad because of it, Oh, okay, that happened. Next.
Thank you so much, Betsy. And it's been such a pleasure reading your book. The name of the book is Tipping Sacred Cows. And you are coming to Vancouver. You're going to be at Banyan Books.
I'm going to be at Banyan Books. I don't have a lot to say right now, just so you know, about the new Bleep, because it's all kind of really early on in the process. But yes, I will be at Banyan Books. And I'm super excited. I'm leaving. I'm going tonight to a book event in Los Angeles, and people can find out where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be by going to my website, betsychasse.net, and clicking on events, and my entire schedule is there.
Awesome. And your last name is Chasse, betsychasse.net. And what would you like to spend the last few minutes of the show talking about?
Gosh, we could talk about anything. I mean, I think, it's for me. I think the reason I'm excited about sharing about my book is because I think one of the big messages that I want to get out to people now. I feel like for a long time we've set up a very big divide. This us and them. And one of the messages I'm writing about this right now is this idea that one of my favorite sentences is when someone says to me, "Oh, I wish they'd wake up." And I always say back to them, they're saying the same thing about you. And I feel like there's this separation between, the new age, new thought, and everybody else, because maybe people don't necessarily agree with you or do what you do, just because they don't do this kind of yoga or they don't follow that guru or they haven't read that detox book, somehow they're less than. And I think for me, one of my biggest missions is to just say there is no us and them. It's time for us. We talk so much about this big shift in humanity that's coming, that's supposed to be happening. And I think the real revolution isn't going to be that science is going to find the answer to the explanation or the mathematical equation for everything. And it isn't going to be because some guru is going to finally explain everything to us. I think the real revolution in terms of humanity is going to come when everybody lets go of their need to know and be right and have the answer, and to just looks at the person standing next to them, whoever it might be, in the line at the grocery store, in the car next to you in the stop sign, somebody you don't even know, and just looks at them and says, gosh, that person is having a life experience just like I am, and it's probably just as hard. And we just find that empathy, and we find that to me is love. That's unconditional love. When you can just look at somebody you don't know, when you can just say, wow, it's hard here. And there is no difference just because I read this book and you haven't. We all have these incredible life experiences. I wrote a lot of personal stories in my book because I feel like that's the way we're going to transcend, is when we're all willing to sit with each other and share some of our greatest joys and some of our greatest miseries, and just look at each other and say, wow, gosh, I get it,
Thank you for that, Betsy. It is interesting, and you do talk a fair bit about ego in the book, and how we say we should overcome our ego or get rid of our ego, and that feeling of us and them, that's ego.
It is. In the New Thought, New Age spiritual movement, there's a lot of ego bashing. The other thing I find really interesting is that there's a lot of desire to bash the human experience. We all want to go and levitate and get out of our bodies, and we all want to have out-of-body experiences, and we all want to hang out in other dimensions. And that's all really cool, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. But I find that a lot of people are just really skipping the part of the game. Like if life was a video game, we all want to skip the part where we learn how to master the body and mind that we've been given. We all want to just get out of it. And one of the ways we do that is to say, oh, the ego's bad. The ego is a tool that we have been given. Just like we've been given this body with, usually 2 arms and 2 legs, and, we have the ability to eat. We have this whole system developed for us. So for me, I've decided that instead of just bypassing learning how to make that work, I just really want to make that work, which means part of it is to go ahead and understand that the ego is not something you need to kill. It's something you need to learn how to use. Just like a fork. Learn to use your ego and your fork. And a lot of the times, our ego is built around the belief systems that we carry. Or your ego, there's lots of definitions of the ego. And in my book, I kind of call it, first of all, it's the piece of you that it helps you be grounded in this reality. And it also is it's sort of part of your filter. It's part of your filtering system. So, if you have a pool, you have a jacuzzi, when the filter gets all clogged up and dirty, random junk is getting in there. So clean out your filter.
And one of those ways is through the My Life Sucks game.
To me, it is. There's a gazillion ways. I'm not saying you have to do it my way, but there's lots of ways to do it. But I think the most important thing you should do, that I try to do, is that whatever process I'm going to use, that I enter into it wholeheartedly and honestly. Because that's where it gets really scary. You go to these workshops and we talk about some of the stuff that we do, and it's great because you have that weekend where everything feels really good, and you got to cry, and you got to laugh, and somebody gave you some insights, and then 5 days later you're on to something else because it wasn't fast enough. It didn't fix right there. But I did that weekend where I cried for 3 days, and it should be gone now. Chances are, as we were talking about before, it's not going to be gone. You're going to have to keep doing the work. Eventually it'll be gone. Dr. Joe, what does Dr. Joe say? I love his book. He wrote the foreword to my book, in Breaking the Habit of Being You. I think it's it takes 21 days to break a habit, which means you have to be on it, like quitting smoking. If you try to quit smoking and then 5 days in you start smoking again, you're starting over from the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's really hard when it comes to these belief systems, these sacred cows that we've been embedded. It's super hard. So just be gentle. with that. Be patient.
I'm not patient.
We want to be fixed because we think somehow we're going to get, if I fix this, I'm going to get to the next level. Here's the thing. There is no next level. This is the level that you're on. It's like, we can talk about dancing in other dimensions, and sure, that's fun, but it's funny because then you come out of your 3-hour meditation, and guess what? You're still, unless you go live in a cave for 21 years. I have a story about a guy in my book who, went off to the Himalayas and did all that for several years, and he still came back, and he still was a human. After all of that, he was still a human.
Was that the monk on the plane?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny story.
It's like, I think people need to accept and come to terms with, you're having a human experience. Have it. Have it. How cool is it that we get to wake up every day and that we get to do this? And then, take some responsibility. Your life is the way your life is because you know what? You did it that way. And you know what? If you did that and you don't like it, guess what? Tomorrow you can wake up and do something else. Okay. There's this great, I don't know how much time you have, but like one of the big concepts is this idea of attachment. And, people oftentimes make the idea of attachment about, you're attached to things and you're attached to people. And for me, when I finally really understood and I'm working on implementing it in my life, the idea of attachment for me was the realization that nothing lasts forever. Things change. So this moment that you're having right now, like for me today when I'm kind of moody and pissy, I can have my moody and pissiness and I can be okay and let myself sit there because I also know that tomorrow it will be different. Whether I want it to or not, it's going to change. Things never stay the same. So when you can enjoy it while you have it or experience it while you have it, but also be ready to go to the next, that's non-attachment,
Well, Betsy, I wish we could talk about this all day. I'm sure we could very easily, but Parts Unknown is coming up in just a moment here on Synchronicity, so I am going to have to say goodbye. Thank you so much for your time. The name of your book is Tipping Sacred Cows. Is there anything quickly that you want to add before we say goodbye?
I hope that the weather is wonderful up there. Are you in Vancouver?
I am. It is beautiful today, yes.
Oh, good. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful weather up there. And just remember that it's okay. Everything, like the thing I remind myself every day in the midst of all the chaos is everything is going to be okay. It's, life is crazy and we got dropped into this video game and it's like, whoa. And I always, whenever it gets a little like, whoa, I just stop and go, take a deep breath and go, everything is going to be okay.
Thank you so much, Betsy. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you at Banyan.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Take care. So again, the name of the book is Tipping Sacred Cows, and that was Betsy Chasse. I wish we could talk more, but it's time for Parts Unknown. So I want to send my love to you. Have a wonderful week. Be well. I love you so much. Namaste.